When my daughter handed me 2 suitcases and told me to leave the house I'd maintained for 30 years, I did it without a fight. She'd just inherited $24 million from her father's estate, and suddenly I was dead weight. 10 days later, she was sleeping in her car outside my studio apartment, sobbing that everything was gone. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're from in the comments. Because what happened next? Nobody saw it coming. The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. I knew it was Martha before I looked at the screen. At 66, you develop instincts about disaster. "Mom." Her voice was raw, stripped of the confidence she'd wielded like a weapon just 10 days ago. "Mom, please, I need you." I sat up in the narrow bed of my studio apartment, the one I'd been renting since my daughter evicted me. The same daughter who'd inherited $24 million and decided her mother wasn't worth keeping around. "Martha, it's almost midnight." "I know, and I'm sorry, but—" Her voice cracked. "Everything's gone. The money, the house, Trevor. The FBI came today. They froze the accounts, took my car. Mom, they're saying I committed fraud." 10 days ago, Martha had stood in the foyer of the house her father Richard and I had built together before the divorce and told me it was time to find my own place. Trevor's arm was around her waist, both of them dressed for a charity gala. "Mom, this house is mine now. Daddy left it to me." Her voice had been cool, rehearsed. "You've done a wonderful job maintaining it, but I think it's time you enjoyed your independence. Don't you?" Independence. That's what she called it when she handed me 2 suitcases and a check for $5,000 to get you started from my dead ex-husband's $24 million estate. I'd packed in silence, while Martha and Trevor toured the rooms discussing which walls to knock down. I took my clothes, my mother's jewelry, and 1 photo album. Everything else, the furniture I'd chosen, the garden I'd planted, the life I'd built, stayed behind. Now, through the phone, I could hear her crying. Real crying. "Where are you?" I asked. "In my car, outside your building. They changed the locks on the mansion. Trevor's gone. His phone's disconnected. Mom, I have nowhere to go." I walked to the window. Sure enough, Martha's silver Mercedes sat under the streetlight, exhaust puffing in the cold November air. I could see her silhouette, head bowed over the steering wheel. Part of me wanted to hang up, let her sit there, let her feel what I'd felt. But I didn't. "Stay there. I'll be right down." I'd sat in Harrison Caldwell's office, surrounded by leather-bound law books and the scent of old money, waiting to hear how Richard had provided for our future. Martha squeezed my hand. "Don't worry, Mom. Daddy would never leave us unprepared." Harrison cleared his throat. "I, Richard James Pope, being of sound mind, do hereby bequeath my entire estate, all properties, investments, and liquid assets, to my beloved daughter, Martha Elizabeth Pope Hayes." The words hit like a fist to my chest. "Wait, Harrison, there's a mistake. Richard promised the house would always be mine." "I'm reading directly from the will, Olivia. Updated 6 months before Richard's death, properly witnessed." "What about the house? We bought it together." Martha squeezed my hand again, and this time I felt the pressure differently. Reassuring or warning? "Mom, you and Daddy were divorced. Legally, his assets went into trust. He wanted everything to stay in the family bloodline." "I am family." Harrison slid a folder across his mahogany desk. The leather blotter beneath it probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget.
You signed a quit claim deed 18 months ago relinquishing ownership. Your signature notarized. I stared at the document. The signature had my loops, my slant, but I had no memory of signing it. Mom, you were so stressed when Daddy got sick. Remember? You were exhausted signing medical forms every day. You probably just forgot.
Trevor spoke for the first time, his voice smooth as expensive whiskey. Richard trusted Martha's judgment. I'm sure you want to honor his wishes. The way he said it, so reasonable, so gentle, made questioning anything feel selfish, hysterical, ungrateful. Harrison continued. Martha would inherit everything: the house, commercial properties, stock portfolio, business interests. Total value, approximately $24 million. For me, nothing. Not even a paragraph acknowledging 30 years of partnership. There must be some provision, I whispered. Harrison's silence told me everything. 3 weeks after that meeting, contractors arrived at 8 a.m. I was still in my nightgown, drinking coffee from the chipped mug Martha had made me in third-grade art class when I heard trucks in the driveway. Through the window, I watched 3 men unload toolboxes and expensive brass door hardware that gleamed in the morning sunlight. Martha appeared in the doorway, crisp in white linen that probably cost more than my car payment. Trevor stood behind her, scrolling through his phone. The movers will be here at 10 to help you pack. I've arranged storage, first month paid. A storage unit? The coffee mug trembled in my hands. Martha, I don't have an apartment yet. That's why I got the unit, so you have time. She smiled like she solved a complex problem. The contractors need to start today. We're already behind schedule. I looked around the kitchen, blue subway tiles I'd installed myself during Martha's freshman year of college, the herb garden on the windowsill I'd maintained for 15 years, the small chip in the counter from when 12-year-old Martha had dropped a ceramic bowl. I kissed her scraped knee that day and told her accidents happen, that we could fix anything together. Can I have a few more days? A week, maybe? Trevor looked up from his phone, and for just a second, something cold flickered across his face. Then the smile was back. Olivia, we've been more than generous. 3 weeks' notice exceeds legal requirements. 3 weeks to pack up 30 years of life? Fine, I'll be gone by this afternoon. Martha's expression softened slightly, and I saw a flash of the daughter I'd raised. Mom, I know this is hard, but you'll see this is better for everyone. Your own space, your own life, no responsibilities. What she meant was no more reminders of the woman who'd sacrificed her nursing career, her dreams, her identity to support her father's ambitions and raise his child. I packed in 4 hours. Everything I owned fit into 2 suitcases and 3 cardboard boxes. Clothes, toiletries, my mother's jewelry, the photo album Richard had given me on our 10th anniversary, back when he promised we'd grow old in this house together. The movers loaded up without comment. They'd probably seen this before. Elderly women displaced by family members who'd inherited property. Martha handed me an envelope when I stood by my car, keys to my home in her other hand. $5,000 to help you get settled. $5,000 from $24 million. I drove away without looking back. If I'd looked back, I might have stayed, begged, and I already spent 30 years making myself smaller. I found a studio above Paolo's Bakery on 3rd Street, 400 square feet with a narrow Murphy bed, cracked bathroom tiles, one window overlooking an alley where tomcats fought at 2 a.m., but every morning the smell of bread drifted up through the floorboards, and that small comfort felt like grace. Paola took pity when I explained I was between situations. First month in deposit, no references needed. I can tell good people. Good people? I wondered if that's what I'd been, or just convenient. Then strange things started. My bank card was declined at the grocery store. I'd been buying eggs, bread, cheese, basics. The cashier ran it twice while the line grew behind me. He crawled up my neck as a teenager sighed loudly. I'll call them, I told the cashier, abandoning my basket.
I used Paolo's phone downstairs. The bank said my account was flagged for suspicious activity. $3,000 had been transferred to an account I didn't recognize 3 days earlier. I didn't authorize that.
Ma'am, the transfer was initiated from your online banking portal using your password and security questions. I don't have online banking. According to our records, you set it up 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago? I'd been packing to move. Martha had offered to help with my digital organization. She'd said banks were going paperless, that I needed to modernize. My credit cards stopped working next. All 3. Customer service said the accounts had been closed at the cardholder's request due to suspected identity theft. I didn't request anything. Ma'am, you called last Tuesday at 2:47 p.m. Last Tuesday at 2:47 p.m., I'd been at the DMV renewing my license. I'd stood in line for 90 minutes. The final blow came when I tried to access my small investment account. $12,000 I'd saved over 15 years from my nursing job, back before Richard convinced me to quit and support the family full-time. I'm sorry, Mrs. Pope. That account was liquidated 2 weeks ago. Funds transferred to the joint account holder. My mouth went dry. I am the only account holder. Actually, Martha Pope Hayes has been joint on this account since 2019. She initiated the closure and transferred funds to her primary account. But she hadn't been joint. I'd opened that account alone, in secret, after the divorce. My safety net. Except now, I wasn't certain of anything. I sat in my studio that night surrounded by unpacked boxes and realized what Martha had done. She hadn't just taken my home, she'd systematically erased me from every financial account, every safety net I'd built over decades. My daughter had made me disappear. And she'd done it while helping me organize my digital life. I found Marcus Donnelly's business card tucked in the photo album between pictures of Martha's high school graduation. He'd been Richard's personal attorney for 15 years before Harrison Caldwell took over the estate work. I called from Paolo's phone downstairs, my hands shaking as I dialed. "Mrs. Pope?" he said when his secretary put me through. His voice was warm, concerned. "I was wondering when you'd reach out. I tried calling you several times, but the number was disconnected." Martha had my phone service canceled. I closed my eyes. "Mr. Donnelly, I need to ask you about Richard's will." Long pause. "Can you come to my office today, if possible? There are things we should discuss in person." Marcus Donnelly's office was nothing like Harrison's showroom. It was cramped and cluttered, with case files stacked on every surface and a coffee maker that looked older than Martha. But his eyes were sharp and kind when he gestured for me to sit. "Olivia, I'll be direct with you because you deserve the truth." He pulled out a thick file folder. Richard handled Richard's estate planning for 14 years. Every single version included substantial provisions for you. My heart hammered against my ribs. What kind of provisions? The house, for one. Richard was adamant you'd have a home for life, regardless of your marital status. He also set up a trust that would provide you with $50,000 annually. Marcus leaned forward. That will left Martha comfortable, roughly $10 million, but you were protected. Richard was very clear about that. But Harrison Caldwell read something completely different. I know, because 6 months before Richard died, he supposedly fired me and hired Caldwell to draft a new estate plan. Except Richard never fired me, Olivia. No letter, no phone call, no official termination.
I only found out I'd been replaced when Harrison's office sent me a courtesy notification after Richard's death. The room tilted slightly. You think someone forged the new will? I think someone took advantage of Richard's declining health. Marcus opened the folder and pulled out several documents. Richard had his stroke in March, correct? The one that left him partially paralyzed and unable to speak clearly?
I nodded, remembering those terrible weeks. Richard struggling to form words, his right hand curled and useless. I'd spent every day at the hospital, holding his left hand, trying to understand his garbled speech. Harrison's will is dated April 15th, 6 weeks after the stroke. He slid a document across the desk. This is Richard's signature on that will. I looked at it, shaky, uncertain. Nothing like Richard's confident, bold hand. Now look at this. He produced another document. Richard's signature on a medical release form from the same week. The hospital administrator witnessed it personally. The two signatures were completely different. The medical form was barely legible, clearly written by someone with severely limited motor control. The R in Richard looked like a jagged mountain range. The will signature was shaky but practiced, like someone had been copying Richard's signature and almost got it right. Someone forged this, I whispered. I believe so, and I believe they also forged the codicil that was supposedly added in May, the one that specifically disinherited you and transferred all assets to Martha. His voice was gentle but firm. Olivia, Richard was not mentally competent to make those changes. His medical records show significant cognitive impairment following the stroke. Any will executed during that period should be invalid. Why didn't you say something at the reading? I wasn't invited to the reading. Harrison didn't notify me, which is unusual since I'd been Richard's attorney for over a decade. By the time I heard about Richard's death through mutual colleagues, the will had already been filed for probate, and you'd moved out of the house. He looked at me intently. Olivia, I've been trying to reach you for weeks. My mind spun. Harrison Caldwell is one of the most respected estate attorneys in the city. Why would he participate in fraud? I don't think he knows it's fraud. I think someone hired him and presented what appeared to be legitimate documents and a compelling story, probably that Richard wanted last-minute changes to protect his daughter's inheritance from potential claims or creditors. Martha. The pieces fell into place. Martha hired him. Or someone acting on Martha's behalf. Marcus pulled out another document. There's more. The quitclaim deed you supposedly signed relinquishing your interest in the house, I pulled the county records. It was notarized by a woman named Sandra Chen, who works as a mobile notary. I tracked her down last week. What did she say? She said she never notarized any document for Olivia Pope. In fact, she remembers the date on that deed very clearly. It was her daughter's 12th birthday. She'd taken the day off. She has photos of herself at Chuck E. Cheese at the exact time that deed was supposedly notarized. Marcus's expression hardened. Someone used her notary seal without authorization. That's a felony. Everything Martha had told me was a lie. Every document, every signature, every legal maneuver that had stripped me of my home and my security, all of it built on fraud. Mr. Donnelly, what do I do? He closed the folder and met my eyes. You fight back. We challenge the will in probate court, we report the forgeries to law enforcement, and we get you what Richard actually intended you to have. He paused. But Olivia, I need you to understand something. If we do this, it's going to get ugly. Martha will fight to keep that money, and if she's willing to commit fraud to get it, she'll be willing to do much worse to keep it. I thought about my daughter, the woman who'd watched me pack my life into suitcases, who'd systematically drained my bank accounts,
who'd erased me from my own financial existence. "I don't care how ugly it gets," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "She stole from me. She lied to me. She threw me out of my home based on forged documents." I looked at Marcus Donnelly. "I want my life back, and I want her to face consequences." Marcus smiled grimly. "Then let's build a case. But we need to move carefully. If Martha realizes we're investigating, she might try to move assets offshore or create additional complications. We need evidence first." "What's first?" "First, we document everything. Every account she closed, every card she canceled, every penny she took. Then we get a handwriting expert to examine those signatures. And then," he pulled out a business card, "then we contact someone I know at the FBI's Financial Crimes Division." I stared at the card. FBI. This was bigger than I had imagined. "Olivia, if these documents are forged, and if Martha knowingly used them to steal your inheritance, we're not just talking about a civil lawsuit. We're talking about federal wire fraud, identity theft, and elder abuse." His expression was serious. "Your daughter could go to prison for a long time." Part of me recoiled at the thought. She was still my daughter, still the baby I'd rocked to sleep, the child I'd loved unconditionally.
But another part of me, the part that had spent the last month eating ramen noodles in a studio apartment while Martha renovated a mansion with stolen money, didn't flinch. "Then that's what she'll face," I said quietly. "Actions have consequences." Marcus moved quickly. Within 3 days, he'd connected me with a forensic handwriting expert who confirmed what we suspected. The signatures on Richard's will and the quitclaim deed were forgeries. The expert testified she was 98% certain the signatures were written by the same person, and that person was not Richard Pope. But here's what I didn't expect. Marcus also discovered that Trevor Hayes, Martha's charming husband, had a history. Not just gambling debts, though those were substantial, but a pattern. 2 previous relationships with wealthy, older women. Both relationships ended shortly after the women's finances mysteriously shifted in ways that benefited Trevor. "He's done this before," Marcus said, sliding a folder across his desk. "Rebecca Thornton, San Diego, 2015. Her mother died, left her $2 million. Within 6 months, the money was gone. Bad investments, Trevor recommended. They divorced. Trevor walked away with $500,000 in the settlement." "And the second?" "Jennifer Park, Seattle, 2018. She inherited her father's business. Trevor convinced her to make him CFO. Within a year, the business was bankrupt. Money funneled through offshore accounts. By the time Jennifer figured it out, Trevor was gone." I stared at the documents. "He's a professional con artist." "Yes, and Martha is his biggest score yet." Marcus's expression was grim. "The question is, how much does Martha know? Is he his partner or his victim?" I thought about my daughter, about how Trevor had appeared in her life 6 months before Richard's stroke, how quickly they'd married, how Trevor had always been there, whispering in her ear, guiding her decisions. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I need to find out." Over the following weeks, Martha was everywhere. Society pages, lifestyle blogs, a glossy magazine feature, "The New Face of Philanthropy," how one young woman is changing lives through strategic giving. I watched from my studio as her social media following exploded. Photos from Santorini, Paris, Dubai, designer shopping sprees carefully curated to look spontaneous. A new Porsche with a license plate that read, "Blessed." Comments gushed, "Goals! Living your best life! You deserve all of this." But I noticed things her admirers didn't. Trevor appeared in fewer and fewer photos.
When he did, his smile looked strained, his eyes distant. Martha's captions grew increasingly manic. Success isn't given, it's taken. No apologies, no regrets. And some people will never understand what it takes to win. Let them stay small. Then came the Instagram story that broke something inside me. A video tour of the renovated house, my house, stripped of everything I'd loved. The blue kitchen tiles I'd chosen and installed myself, gone, replaced by cold white marble that looked like a morgue. The herb garden I'd maintained for 15 years, paved over for an infinity hot tub. My bedroom, the room where I'd rocked Martha to sleep through countless nightmares, where I'd helped her study for exams, where I'd held her when her first boyfriend broke her heart, was now a spa suite with a massage table and a crystal chandelier that probably cost more than my yearly rent. Out with the old, in with the extraordinary, Martha narrated cheerfully, her voice echoing through the empty rooms. Sometimes you have to destroy everything to build something beautiful. I closed my phone and cried for the first time since the eviction. But here's what kept me going. Marcus called 2 days later with news. The FBI opened an investigation. Someone, and I have my suspicions it was one of Trevor's previous victims, tipped them off about irregularities in Richard's estate. Stay with me, because what happened next is where this story really gets interesting. Special Agent Rebecca Torres met us at a coffee shop near Marcus's office. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense handshake. Mrs. Pope, I've reviewed the documents your attorney provided. The forged will, the quitclaim deed, the notary fraud. She pulled out a tablet. But what really caught our attention is the money trail. She turned the tablet toward me. It showed a complex web of accounts, transactions, shell companies. Your ex-husband's estate was worth $24 million. Within 6 weeks of Martha taking control, $15 million had been moved through a series of transfers, some to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, some to shell corporations with names like RJP Holdings and Pope Investment Partners. Are those Martha's companies?
That's what we're trying to determine. The paperwork lists Martha as the principal, but Agent Torres swiped to another screen. We've discovered that Trevor Hayes has gambling debts exceeding $300,000 owed to various casinos and private lenders. Some of those debts were paid off within weeks of Martha's inheritance clearing. My stomach turned. Trevor was stealing from Martha? Trevor was using Martha to launder money, and possibly to hide assets from his previous victims who have civil judgments against him. Agent Torres's expression hardened. Mrs. Pope, I need to ask you a difficult question. Do you believe your daughter knows about the money laundering, or is she another one of Trevor's victims? I thought about Martha watching me pack, about her cold dismissal of my 30 years of sacrifice, about her systematic erasure of my financial identity, but I also thought about how Trevor was always there, always whispering, always guiding, about how Martha's personality had shifted after she met him, about the daughter I'd raised versus the woman who'd evicted me. I think, I said slowly, that Martha made terrible choices, greedy choices, cruel choices, but I don't think she understood what Trevor was really doing. That may be true, but legally, if she signed the documents, and we have dozens of documents with her signature, she's liable. Agent Torres closed her tablet. We're going to freeze the assets within the next week or two. All of them. The house, the accounts, everything. And we're going to bring federal charges against both Martha and Trevor for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, and elder abuse. Will Martha go to prison? That depends on whether she cooperates. If she helps us understand how this happened, if she testifies against Trevor, if she can demonstrate she was manipulated, we might be able to work out a plea deal. But Mrs. Pope, I need you to understand, even with cooperation, she's looking at supervised probation, significant fines, and a felony conviction. Without cooperation, Agent Torres met my eyes. She could face 10 to 15 years in federal prison. The room felt suddenly cold. When will you arrest them? We move when we're ready. Could be a week, could be 2. But Mrs. Pope, when it happens, when Martha's world collapses, she's going to need help. The question is, will you be there? I didn't have an answer. It happened on a Thursday. I was buying vegetables at the corner market when my phone buzzed with a news alert. Local heiress Martha Pope Hayes under federal investigation for fraud. My hand shook as I read the article. FBI agents had raided the Oakwood Drive house. Assets frozen. Trevor Hayes fled the country, last seen boarding a flight to Las Vegas, then disappearing. Arrest warrant issued. Martha's face was in the photo, caught by news cameras as agents led her from the house. She looked destroyed. I went home and waited. The phone rang at 11:47 p.m., and that's where we started. Martha looked like she'd aged 10 years. Unwashed hair pulled back in a tangled ponytail, designer clothes wrinkled and stained, mascara smeared down her face. When I opened the passenger door of her Mercedes, I caught the smell of someone who'd been living in their car. Stale fast food, fierce sweat, desperation. "Mom," she collapsed. I stood there for a long moment, looking at my daughter, the baby I'd rocked to sleep, the toddler who called me mama and clung to my legs, the teenager who'd stayed up late talking about her dreams, the woman who'd become someone I didn't recognize. "Get out of the car. Come upstairs." She followed me like a ghost, silent except for occasional sniffles. In the elevator, she stared at the floor. In the hallway, she kept her eyes down, her shoulders hunched. When we entered my studio, she stopped in the doorway. The space was barely bigger than her walk-in closet had been. A Murphy bed pulled down from the wall, a kitchenette with a mini fridge and hot plate, one narrow window overlooking the alley where tomcats fought and garbage trucks rumbled through at 5 a.m. My entire life fit in this room. "This is where you've been living?" she whispered. "Mom, this place is..." "Small," I finished. "Yes, but it's mine. I earned it with my own money, in my own name. Nobody can take it from me." The words landed like a slap. Martha flinched, fresh tears spilling over. "Sit down," I said, pointing to the small couch, a used IKEA piece I'd bought for $75, "and tell me everything. From the beginning. I want the truth this time. Not Trevor's version, yours." She sank onto the couch, pulling her knees to her chest like a child. "The FBI agent said Trevor forged Daddy's signatures. She said the will was fake, that the trust transfer was fraudulent. She said Trevor used me to steal from you and that I'm legally responsible because I signed the documents and moved the money." Her voice cracked. "Mom, I swear I didn't know what I was signing. Trevor handled everything. He'd bring me papers and say the lawyers needed signatures, that it was routine estate management. I trusted him. The way I trusted you when you asked me to sign documents." Martha looked up, and I saw real understanding dawn in her eyes. "I know. I did to you exactly what he did to me. I see that now." "What did you tell the FBI?" "I said I needed a lawyer first. But Mom," her voice rose with panic, "I don't have a lawyer. Every account is frozen. I have $300 in my wallet and a car that's probably going to be seized next. I can't afford a lawyer. I can't afford anything." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "Mom, please." Her eyes were desperate, terrified. "They're bringing federal charges next week. Conspiracy, money laundering, wire fraud, elder abuse. The FBI agent said I'm looking at 10 to 15 years in federal prison. She said the only way to reduce my sentence is to cooperate, to testify against Trevor, to show them everything. But I don't even know where Trevor is. He's been gone for 3 days,
And I don't... She broke down completely. I don't even know what I signed. Trevor would bring me documents at night after wine or in the morning before meetings, and I just signed them because he said it was necessary. Mom, I've been so stupid. I stood there, watching my daughter sob, and felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition, understanding. She destroyed my life. Now hers was destroyed too. And I had a choice to make. Morning came with instant coffee from my hot plate and day-old bread from Paolo downstairs. I need to go back to the house, Martha said, her voice hoarse from crying. There are documents there. Papers Trevor kept in his office. If I'm going to cooperate with the FBI, I need to show them everything. The house is sealed. Federal asset seizure. I still have keys, and technically, until the marshals actually take possession, I'm allowed to retrieve personal belongings. You'll come with me? I can't go alone. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We drove to Oakwood Drive in Martha's Mercedes, the one luxury she had left, and probably only because it had been parked at my building when the FBI seized everything else. Pulling up to the house felt like returning to a crime scene. Yellow federal notice tape crossed the front door in big X's. Official notices plastered the windows. Property seized. United States federal government, do not enter. The lawn I had carefully maintained for 30 years was already overgrown, dandelions pushing through like small yellow accusations. And across the garage door, someone had spray-painted fraud in dripping red letters 3 feet high. Martha stared at the graffiti, her face crumpling. The neighbors did that. After the FBI came, they all stood in their yards watching while agents carried out boxes and boxes of files. Mrs. Henderson from next door shouted that we were thieves, that we'd stolen from charity. She donated to our foundation gala. Mr. Chen spit in the driveway. People I'd invited to parties, people who drunk our wine and eaten our food, they all just stood there filming it on their phones. Mrs. Henderson, who'd gushed about what a generous soul Martha was. Mr. Chen, who'd offered to help with landscaping recommendations. Martha unlocked the door with shaking hands. Inside, the house was eerily silent, like a museum after hours. Half the furniture was gone. Expensive pieces the FBI had tagged as purchased with fraudulent funds. The walls had rectangular shadows where art had hung. The exposed paint, a different shade. The marble kitchen, the one that had replaced my blue tiles, was covered in papers and notices and evidence tags with numbers. This way, Martha said quietly, leading me down the hall to what had been my sewing room. Trevor had converted it into a home office, all dark wood and leather and the scent of expensive cologne. The office looked like a tornado had hit it. Drawers hung open, emptied. Filing cabinets gaped. The FBI had taken everything that mattered. "No," Martha whispered, staring at the empty desk. Her voice rose. "No, no, no! The files were here. All of Trevor's documents, the bank statements, the account numbers, everything was here."
The FBI took them all. But I need them to cooperate. How am I supposed to show them what Trevor did if I don't have evidence? She yanked open drawer after drawer, finding only office supplies and old receipts and empty folders. He kept everything here, all his records, all the... She stopped abruptly, staring at something in the bottom drawer. "What is it?" I asked. Martha pulled out a folder with trembling hands.
This is my handwriting, my signature. She opened it, and I saw dozens of documents: trust transfers, account openings, wire authorizations, power of attorney forms, all signed by Martha in her distinctive handwriting, her signature with its characteristic loop on the M. But beneath each of her signatures was something else, small sticky notes in Trevor's handwriting. I leaned closer to read them. Sign here, tax documents, time sensitive. Routine transfer authorization, lawyer needs by Friday. Estate protection strategy, just a formality. Trust restructuring, accountant recommended. Martha sank into the office chair, flipping through page after page, her hands shaking harder with each one. I signed all of these. He'd bring them to me with these explanations. They always sounded legitimate: tax planning, asset protection, estate management. He'd have his lawyer friend on speaker explaining why it was necessary, why I needed to sign right away. Her voice broke. I never read them. Not really. I just trusted him. I looked over her shoulder at the documents. They weren't routine. They were systematic fraud. Accounts opened in offshore banks, funds transferred through shell companies, assets hidden in trusts with fake names like Pope Family Holdings and Hayes Investment Trust and RJP Capital Management. And Martha had signed every single one. Mom, there's more. She pulled out a bank statement paperclipped to a legal document, her hands shaking so badly the papers rattled. This account, the one with the $24 million, it wasn't structured the way I thought. Look at the names. She handed me the statement. The account name read, Pope Family Trust, Richard J. Pope, Martha E. Hayes, Trevor C. Hayes. Trevor had equal signing authority from the beginning. And look at these withdrawals. She pointed to lines on the statement. $3 million to RJP Holdings. I've never heard of that company. $2 million to Pope Investment Partners. That doesn't exist. $500,000 to Cayman Diversified Trust. Mom, I didn't authorize any of these. My stomach dropped. Trevor was laundering the money. He was using Daddy's name and identity, setting up fake companies, funneling the inheritance through them. Martha's face had gone completely pale. The FBI agent kept asking about offshore accounts, about shell corporations. She asked if I knew about transfers to the Cayman Islands. I said no, I'd never heard of any of that. But Mom, this, she held up a document, is my signature, authorizing a Cayman Islands account. I signed it. I swear I don't remember, but that's my signature. When is it dated? She checked, her hands shaking. Some of these are right after Daddy died. I was grieving, barely sleeping. Trevor said he was handling everything, but others... She stopped on one document, her face going even paler. This one is dated 3 weeks ago. Mom, I was in Paris 3 weeks ago, at a hotel, for 5 days. Trevor stayed here because he said he had business meetings. I examined the signature closely. It looked like Martha's at first glance. Same general shape, same loop on the M, but something was off. The pressure was too even, too controlled. Martha's natural signature had variation, little trembles, human imperfection. This one looked traced. He forged this one, I said quietly, which means he probably forged others too. But how do I prove which signatures are real and which are fake? I signed so many without reading them. Her voice rose with panic. The FBI is going to think I was in on it from the beginning. They're going to think I knowingly helped Trevor launder money and hide assets. Mom, the FBI agent said I could get 15 years in federal prison. She wasn't wrong. Looking at the evidence spread across the desk, any prosecutor would see conspiracy. Trevor as architect, Martha as accomplice. We need a lawyer. A criminal defense attorney who specializes in federal fraud. With what money? Martha's laugh was bitter. Every account is frozen. The house is being seized. I have $300 and a car with a quarter tank of gas. I thought about my small savings account, the one Martha hadn't found. $8,000. Enough for a consultation, maybe a retainer deposit. Marcus Donnelly, your father's old attorney. He knows everything about the forged will, the documents, Trevor's pattern. He might help.
Why would he help me? I benefited from the fraud. Because you're also a victim, I said carefully. Trevor used you. He manipulated you the same way he manipulated his previous victims. He forged your father's will to steal my inheritance. then used you as a front to launder that stolen money." Martha stared at me. "You believe me?" "Did I?" I looked at her, surrounded by evidence of crimes she'd unwittingly committed. My daughter was many things: entitled, selfish, greedy. But she wasn't a criminal mastermind. She was Trevor's target. "I believe you were manipulated," I said. "I believe Trevor used your worst impulses, your greed, your need for status, to make you commit crimes you didn't understand. But Martha, that doesn't erase what you did to me. You threw me out. You stole from me. You erased me." "I know." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry isn't enough, but neither is watching you go to prison for Trevor's crimes." I gathered the documents. "So here's what happens. We call Marcus Donnelly. We cooperate fully with the FBI. You tell them everything, every document Trevor gave you, every explanation, every lie. You help them understand how he operated." "And then?" "Then we hope honesty keeps you out of prison. Because if you don't help them catch Trevor, if you try to protect yourself or him, they'll assume you were his partner." I met her eyes. "And partners go to federal prison." Martha stood slowly, looking around Trevor's office, evidence of his betrayal everywhere. "Mom, if I help the FBI, if I testify against Trevor, am I betraying him?" I thought about Trevor's cold smile, calling me dead weight, about how he'd systematically destroyed my daughter while pretending to love her. "No, sweetheart," I said. "You're finally choosing the truth." I stood in the Maple Street Community Center on a Wednesday evening, watching Martha arrange folding chairs in a circle. She moved with quiet efficiency I'd never seen before. No phone checking Instagram, no designer clothes, no trace of the entitled heiress who'd thrown lavish charity galas. She wore jeans from Target and a sweater from Goodwill. Her hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. When she smiled at the women arriving for the evening session, it was genuine. No performance, no calculation, just warmth. "Mrs. Pope, is this set up okay?" she called. I surveyed the circle of chairs, the folding table with coffee and donated pastries from Paolo's Bakery, and the handmade sign, "Second Chances, Financial Recovery Support Group." "It's perfect, Martha." The plea deal had gone through 5 months earlier, after extensive negotiation. Martha had cooperated fully with the FBI, providing testimony that helped them track Trevor to Costa Rica, where he was arrested trying to board a flight to Panama with a fake passport and $200,000 in cash. The money, what remained after Trevor's gambling debts and wire transfers, had been recovered, approximately $16 million of the original 24. The recovered funds were distributed according to Richard's original will, the legitimate one Marcus Donnelly had drafted. I received the house back, along with the trust Richard had intended, $50,000 annually for living expenses. I also received compensation for the accounts Martha had drained. Martha's sentencing had been harsh but fair. The judge had been clear during the hearing. "Ms. Hayes, your cooperation with the FBI and your testimony against Trevor are the primary reasons I'm not sending you to federal prison today. However, make no mistake, your actions were egregious. You threw your elderly mother out of her home. You systematically stole her life savings. You participated in money laundering,
even if you claim ignorance. The sentence was 3 years supervised probation, 1,000 hours of community service, full restitution to me and Trevor's other victims, and a felony conviction. She was also required to attend financial literacy classes and banned from managing anyone else's finances. But the judge had added something else. Ms. Hayes, I'm giving you a chance many defendants don't receive. Use it wisely. Prove to your mother, to this court, and to yourself that you can be better than the worst thing you've done. And slowly, month by month, Martha was trying. The support group had been her idea. Mom, there have to be other women manipulated and stolen from by people they trusted. What if we could help them?
So we'd started small, a weekly meeting, a safe space for women recovering from financial abuse, whether from family members, partners, or con artists. Martha led the sessions with a humility I'd never seen in her before. I provided resources, legal aid connections, testimony about surviving betrayal. Watching her greet women who'd survived what we had, I saw something I thought was lost forever. My daughter's compassionate heart, buried for years under privilege and Trevor's poison. Mom, can you start tonight? Tell your story. I told it dozens of times now. It never got easier. Standing before these women and admitting my own daughter had thrown me out still felt like exposing an open wound. But I did it because they needed to know they weren't alone. My name is Olivia Pope. 8 months ago, my daughter inherited $24 million and gave me 2 suitcases and an eviction notice. After the meeting, while cleaning up, Martha was quieter than usual. What's wrong? I asked, stacking chairs. Thinking about Daddy, what he'd think of all this. She gestured around the community center. I spent his money on designer clothes and parties and people who didn't matter. Now I'm serving coffee in a church basement. And I think he'd be disappointed in who I became. She paused. But maybe proud of who I'm trying to be now. Your father loved you, Martha, even when he worried about your choices. I found something. She reached into her bag, pulling out a letter worn from being folded and refolded. When did he write it? 6 months before he died. Right after he changed his will, his real will, the one Marcus drafted. Her voice caught. I think he knew. Somehow he knew how things might go. She handed it to me, Richard's careful handwriting. For Martha, to be opened if she needs guidance. Have you read it? 100 times, but I want you to read it, out loud. I need to hear it. I opened the envelope carefully, unfolding the letter. My dearest Martha, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and things haven't gone as I'd hoped. I'm writing this because I love you enough to be honest, even when honesty is uncomfortable. You have always been my pride and my worry. You have your mother's beauty and your grandmother's sharp mind, but you also have something else, a hunger for validation that frightens me. You measure yourself by what you have, rather than who you are. That's a dangerous way to live. I've watched you chase status, surround yourself with people who value your wallet more than your character, and dismiss the one person who's loved you unconditionally, your mother. I've seen you treat her like hired help rather than the woman who sacrificed her dreams so you could have yours. That's why I changed my will, not to punish you, but to protect her, and to give you an opportunity to prove me wrong about who you might become when tested. Here's what I learned too late in life. Money reveals the soul. It doesn't corrupt or create character. It simply shows what was always there.
kindness or cruelty, generosity or greed, humility or entitlement. If you're reading this, you've probably discovered what money revealed about your own soul. I hope you didn't like what you saw. I hope it hurt, because that pain is the beginning of wisdom. But here's the other truth I learned. Love redeems everything, all of it. Every mistake, every moment of selfishness, every failure to be who you should have been. Love, real love, the kind your mother has shown you even when you didn't deserve it, has the power to transform everything. So if you're reading this, broken and scared and ashamed, know that I believe in your capacity for redemption. I always have. That's why I made sure your mother would be protected, because I knew she'd still be there for you, even after everything. That's who she is. Don't waste her love, Martha. Don't waste this chance to become someone worth being. I'm proud of you, not for what you have, but for who you can still choose to be. With all my love, Dad. My voice broke on the last line. When I looked up, Martha was crying silently, tears streaming down her face.
He knew, she whispered. He knew exactly what would happen, and he still believed I could be better. He did, and so do I. Martha wiped her eyes. Mom, I know I can never undo what I did. I can't give you back those months in the studio apartment or the humiliation of being evicted or the trust I destroyed, but I promise, her voice strengthened, I promise I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn back the right to be your daughter. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the woman who'd betrayed me, but the one fighting every day to be different, better. You already are my daughter, Martha. You always were. Even when I was angry, even when I was hurt, you were always my daughter. I took her hands. The question was never whether I'd forgive you. It was whether you'd forgive yourself enough to change. I'm trying, Mom. Every day I'm trying. I know, sweetheart. I can see it. 3 months after that conversation, I sold the Oakwood Drive house. It held too many ghosts. Richard's illness, Martha's betrayal, Trevor's manipulation, my own diminishment. I bought a smaller place 2 blocks from the community center, with a garden where I could grow herbs again and a spare room for the foundation Martha and I were building together. The Second Chances Foundation now provided legal aid, financial counseling, and emergency housing for women recovering from family financial abuse. We'd secured grants, recruited volunteer lawyers, partnered with local shelters and advocacy groups. Martha worked there full-time, from minimum wage, coordinating services and leading support groups. She'd also been accepted to a paralegal certification program, not law school, since her felony conviction made bar admission nearly impossible, but a way to use her experience to help others navigate the legal system. If I can't be a lawyer, I can at least help people understand their rights, make sure they don't sign documents without reading them, make sure they're not erased the way I erased you. On the 1-year anniversary of the night she'd called from her car, we sat on my new porch, drinking tea and watching the sunset. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever regret it? Testifying for me at sentencing, helping me, giving me another chance when I didn't deserve it? I thought about the question, about the months of pain and betrayal, about the woman I'd been, broken and eating ramen in a studio apartment, and the woman I'd become. No, I said honestly, because revenge would have destroyed both of us. This way, I gestured at the foundation paperwork spread across the porch table, we're building something that matters. We're turning your worst mistake into something that helps other people survive theirs. Daddy was right, Martha said softly. Money revealed my soul, and it wasn't pretty. But love,
Your love gave me a chance to rebuild it. I squeezed her hand. That's all any of us can ask for, sweetheart. A chance to be better than we were. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, I realized something profound. I hadn't lost my daughter to greed and betrayal. I'd found her again through accountability and redemption. And that inheritance, the one built on second chances, hard work, and hard-won wisdom, was worth more than $24 million could ever be. Thank you for watching this story of betrayal, consequences, and redemption. If this journey touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late for second chances. And let me know in the comments, have you ever faced an impossible choice between justice and mercy? How did you handle it? Remember, money reveals who we are, but love has the power to transform who we become. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about family, forgiveness, and finding strength when everything falls apart. Until next time, hold your loved ones close, set firm boundaries, and never stop believing in the possibility of change.